essentially where we left off. In the middle of the page, Memvav, and the line begins with the word mekablim.
Don't get confused with mekablim.
Yeah, don't get confused with mekablim. Actually, you're starting from the wrong point, because before he says ve'ein mekablim. See what happens?
Oh, look at that.
You ready? We are sort of in the middle of explaining the phenomenon of koiches hane'alomim. There are two distinct sets of koiches, which are described and referred to as koiches hagluyim and koiches hane'alomim. It's extremely important for us, under the circumstances where, with the mentality and the sense of reality that is floating in the world, in the air, to understand that koiches hagluyim, the functioning koiches, have a root at a much deeper level that's called koiches hane'alomim, concealed koiches. In our way of exposing this, we said very simply that when a person learns to do something, anything, walk, talk, write, anything that he does, so even though this is a unique, a distinct skill that he has to learn how to use it and so forth, but there is a phenomenal associated with that, and that is when a person sits and writes, you're not taken aback. What is he doing? How does he know how to do that? Because it's totally representative of his reality, of his essence. A person writes. Of course, that's what a human being is able to do. Just as a human being is described defined as medaber. Medaber means that he is able to express himself in words. He's able to collect his thoughts and his ideas and his sense and express it in words. Break it down into small bits and create words and phrases and sentences and paragraphs and pages and books. And all that perfectly describes, fits with the human essence. If this were done by another creature other than the human being, we wouldn't ever believe it. Not only we would not believe it, we would always recognize that this is an external, just a superimposed skill, not a skill, an action that was trained, that this creature was trained to do, but it doesn't really relate to it. Therefore, when you see a person in koiches hagluyim, Sechel and Beis, and all other functioning koiches of thought, speech, and deed, these are not koiches that function at the level that they exist, that are born at the level where they function, but they are drawn from a deeper and truer, closer to the essence sense. In the person. It means that that at an essential level, he relates to these functions. He does not feel out of place in too cold.
Yeah.
He does not feel out of place doing anything. There's an interesting thing that occurred in our group. Baruch Bush once had to speak, and he was discussing with me what he's saying, how he should say, and so forth. So I suggested a certain approach and certain things. He says, Rabbi, I cannot say this. You can say it. I cannot say this. Why can he say it? Why can he not say it? Because he didn't go through this. He didn't live it through. He knows it. He knows to repeat it. But he didn't labor through it so that this is his own thinking. He said, I cannot say this. I don't feel comfortable saying it. What does this tell us? That when a person speaks, it's not an external action. It is an action that is representative and is drawn from an internal reality that he relates to what he's saying. And if he did not relate to what he's saying, you could tell right away. But there's nothing to it. This source, these deeper realizations, are also koiches. Let's understand the definition of the word koyach. The word koyach means an ability. The nefesh itself is not a koyach. Nefesh koyach itself is Emerson, doesn't belong. This is the Emerson's presence in the person. At the risk of losing you, I want to say, just as we always breathing is an excellent means to understand this entire phenomenon. Breathing is also like a koyach. It's an in and out activity. You breathe in, breathe out. But we all know that we are not living upon the air that we breathe in and breathe out. There is the resource, the total resource of air around us. And we say all the time this is what's called the air pressure, that from our perspective it goes ad infinitum. It goes up to 500 miles up. And this air pressure creates a reality of air. From this reality of air, we take a breath. And then we refresh it, and we refresh it. But we are aware, acutely aware, that we're taking a breath from this great arsenal. To the extent, as we pointed out, that even though we're breathing in and out, this action of breathing in and out is not an action that is dependent upon our activity. It occurs almost automatically because the air pressure is urging us, let me in. And this is how we breathe. This mass of air could be used to understand the concept of koiches hane'elomim. This is not a moshe for it, but to understand the concept. So that when the person does anything, the koiches hane'elomim, he relates to it at a much deeper and greater reality sense than the action itself. This is called koiches hane'elomim. These kochas hane'elomim, as the Rebbe says, are rooted in etzem nefesh. Rooted in etzem nefesh means the nefesh itself, even though the nefesh is infinitely superior. The nefesh, you could say, this is like the masover. The masover doesn't know about the breath. It's just a presence of air. The nefesh, nevertheless, just like the mass of air, is being capable to subdivide it and take a certain modicum of it, that which is just a breathful, in order to supply air on a practical and a functioning level. Although the mass of air is still necessary, so too the nefesh. The nefesh is life at a nefesh level. Nonetheless, this life is then allows itself to be subdivided into koichos. So that you have the eyes that take that quality, the ears that take this quality, the Sechel, the midos, these are all rooted, these are all representative of the mass of life, of the nefesh. And then we have kochos hagluyim, kochos hane'elom. Kochos hagluyim are first formulated into kochos, and then they come into function. Which is why it's first identified in Sechel. Sechel understands what I want to say, or how I want to say it, and why I want to say it, and what's the basis of it, and so forth. It translates reality at the Sechel level. And then it comes down into function. Kochos hane'elomim do not go through that translation. Kochos hane'elomim says, the nefesh knows it, and therefore I know it. That's what the Rebbe says over here. The line begins mekablim. Mekablim v'nimshochim me'etzem nefesh. The kochos are received and they are drawn from the etzem nefesh. What does that mean? It means many things. To put it bluntly, it makes sense that this koch should come from this nefesh. It is not something which is formulated circumstantial at the moment when it's needed, like the idiots have convinced the whole world. Ve'al came, and therefore, Abraham said of Hadrogo. This is why in these koichos there is no order. Not one koich reveals itself before the other, but neither is it Hadrogo. Any kind of rank. Sechel first, midas second, and so forth, because they're all representing the nefesh. They all represent the reality of the nefesh itself, not drawn from each other. Graduality, whatever you call it, grading.
Rabbi.
Just 1 second. V'nimshochim kulam ki echad. And they are in fact drawn all at once. What does that mean, they are drawn all at once? Midas and Sechel are two totally different messages. And yet we're saying Nimshochem Kulam Ki Echad. Because there is no graduality, there's no gradation in the koichos. They're all representative of the etzem nefesh. they all have an equal standing in terms of the truth that they represent. It is true from the nefesh perspective that a person should understand what life is about, and that life is a God-given reality, whatever he understands in Sechel. That's a truth inside the nefesh. It is true also inside the nefesh that one should relate to it emotionally. He should relate to his creator with ahava and yir. And it is also true inside the nefesh that one should transform the world in the image of God. That's also true inside the nefesh. This is all is going from the highest to the lowest aspect, and all representative of nefesh itself. Yeah.
I guess this is a general question, but I'll just say it in one detail for now. Koyach HaDibur, for example. Like I could bring this up. It might help. I remember learning that whenever a person speaks, even if he didn't think about the thought, even if he didn't think about what he's going to say right now, he had to have thought about it at least once in the past. Are we saying that there's a koyach hadibur that's above this, that's not based on machshava, that's just the reality of itself?
No. This what you learned is the principle that dibur. This is the koyach hadibur. That dibur comes from machshava. And even though a person is able to speak without pre-thought, so it explains that not pre-thought at this moment, but he must have thought about it before. Otherwise he couldn't produce the speech.
Right.
This is what it says.
We're not going beyond that. That's koyches hanalamim is not bypassing that.
Koyches hanalamim dibur is exclusively koyches hagluyim. Because dibur, you can't say two words at once. If you say two words at once, it's not dibur. So on the nelam level, it is the Ayin that it makes sense to you to bring it out in dibur, but not the actual dibur. It has to come into a cave. In general, koyches hane'elamim is referring to koyches that represent nefesh, not guf. Okay. Okay. B'dugma kozais. Next slide. B'dugma kozais yuvan l'maylo. In likeness of this, we will understand the way it is l'maylo. What happened, the way we started talking about koyches hane'elamim, because we were talking intentionally about esesfiras agnuzis, and we said esesfiras agnuzis are one with the Ayin Sof. Even though it's esesfiras, nonetheless they are completely one with the Ayin Sof. And when they, in order to bring it down, you had to go through a tzimtzum. If you bring down the esesfiras agnuzis, that's what we say. The way it is and in their gonus state, that would not be able to relate to world. World would not be able to accept it. And the motion for this is the keches hagluim, the keches hane'elam. Keches hagluim come in an order which suits a worldly process. Keches hane'elamim, they do not have these qualifications at all. The koiches do not develop in a certain order, one from the other, nor do they wait for each other to come forth. They misgalim kulim kiach, and that's a moshel for keches for the esespheres agnusis. And this was happened. Yuvan kazesh yuvan l'mayla. Okay, we have that. The esespheres hagluyos, where they revealed esespheres that each sphere is identifiable individually on the functional level. Hamshachos and who b'seidem hadraga b'chinas b'dimo v'yichud. They are drawn in a seidem hadraga in order and hadraga. Hadraga means a gradation, meaning to say that there is a higher and a lower, a source, an initiator, and the result. And it has the element of gdimu v'yichud, of precedent and subsequent. The tchila, where at first, hu hamshochas, v'yizgalos ha-moichin. At first, the moichin are drawn and the moichin are misgal. We already spoke about this, it's Galas HaMoichin. I'm going to say one or two more words. Hainu Atzilus B'chinas Chochma Bina, which is essentially the Inyan Atzilus of bringing forth the union of Chochma and Bina. Chochma and Bina are koiches, and the Milo that is also in the spheres is Hamshocha of Chochma, Atzilus of Chochma and Bina. So we had demonstrated the union from Atzilus and Chochma and Bina in the following way. He said that a person could be outside of the room and observe what's going on in the room and see everything clearly. And then there is another state where he is not outside, not observing, but he's actually inside. In both instances, he knows all that's going on in the room. Except when he's observing from outside, he's observing one entity at a time. And he studies one wall at a time. And each wall represents another point, east, west, north, and south. Whereas when he's inside, the entire reality of the room is experienced at once. He's experiencing not an east and western wall, he's experiencing a room. This is the way it is. It is the essence, the source. And then, from this you have to draw and say, this room has an east and a west and a north and a south, and up and down. This is when this dynamic reality is being brought down into a Sechel level.
potential here is something Ne'elam becoming Gilui.
Yeah. So, the Maila is Esespheres Hagluyas. These Esespheres Hagluyas are nimshach from the Esespheres Hagluyas. In what way are they nimshach? Beseder Hadroga. They're nimshach in a very organized fashion. Where one comes first and says like that first has to come Mochin. Mochin has to be first. Let's give a definition to this Indian that Mochin have to come first. You can ask the Gabbai, perhaps he should have deference for his underlings.
What, by sound or by, in what sense did
he's interfering with the class? I know he's a Gabbai, but still. First, there has to be the Galos HaMochin. What is so unique about this Galos HaMochin that enables the development of all other koichos? As mentioned many times, if you touch an object, you feel it in your hand. What is the difference between seeing an object and touching it? What is the difference between knowing about the object in Sechel or knowing about the object by touch? And the answer is, when you know an object by touch, you don't know the object. You know how it feels in your hand. So you're knowing yourself. It's not real knowledge of the reality. It's your personal experience. Sechel, the definition of Sechel is to know things in their reality, as they are, not as they affect you and how you like to know, how you feel about them. This is Sechel. There is no knowledge, no development of any other functionality without first having a reality that you're talking about. This is what provided by Sechel, by Mochin. Mochin have this unique quality where Mochin do not need to be personally involved in knowing what they know. That's why it's called Chochmah is identical to Bitl. Bitl means I don't have to agree with it, I don't have to process it. I don't have to experience it in order to know its reality. I know its reality because it's real. If I cannot grasp it, does not diminish my knowledge of it. Which is what enables us to serve the Meibush in the true way. Otherwise, we're saying, okay, what is there for me in this? So Chochmah is providing us the knowledge of the Meibush directly that we want to serve the Meibush. Not because how we are benefiting from But the Rambam says, I mention all the time, the first principle of Chochmah is to know that there is a first being. A first being has no substantiation from any human experience. That is a knowledge that one knows and accepts the knowledge just because that's the way it is. Which is a supreme knowledge. It's a primary knowledge in the human being. Without that knowledge, there is no reality. Then everything becomes subjective. So that's why it says, first there is Hamshachas HaMochi, which is the inyan of Atzilus of Chochmah and Bina, the Maila. And then afterwards, he develop all the other means. This, I think, is it for this morning.
Yeah.